Hello and welcome to your daily mobile gaming sizzle. So the question we're asking today is, what will be the impact of Super Nintendo Run on Nintendo's financials? So Super Nintendo Run is the big game of the week, possibly the month, maybe even the year, who knows. So it's the first proper Mario game coming out on mobile, and it is what we might call a proper Mario game. It is basically a premium game. It's a paid download, or, well, as Nintendo likes to say, free to start. So the download is free and you get a certain small amount of content to play for free, and then basically the rest of the game's locked, $10, and it's yours. No in-app purchases, no adverts. So very much going against the kind of business trend when it comes to mobile games, which is all about free-to-play content, games as a service, adding new content in, keeping people playing for weeks and months and years, and then monetizing them in kind of indirect ways. But for those games that are successful, making hundreds or even billions of dollars in a year out of that kind of service model. Nintendo's not looking for that at all. Partly that's because it's a Mario game, and it's kind of hard to see how you would integrate the kind of classic Mario gameplay mechanics in with some sort of resource system, or kind of waiting around for something to unlock, which is typically how free-to-play mobile games monetize. So while Super Nintendo Run will be no doubt a very successful game in terms of downloads, already on the App Store 20 million people have signed up to be notified when it comes out, which we expect to happen on Thursday. We can kind of work out, because it's very very easy to work out, what the impact it could have on Nintendo's financials are. So the game's $10. Obviously Apple will take 30% of that, giving Nintendo 70% of that. And a few analysts have already had a kind of waving a finger in the air type approach to how many downloads they can see. Quite how they think they can work this out is a bit preposterous, really. But it's, in a sense, it's kind of clear that if we assume, in very rough figures, in the first month, which is now December, only half a month left of the year, if we assume like 10 million paid unlocks of the game. So it doesn't really matter how many downloads there are. Obviously there'll be some sort of conversion rate between the amount of people who download the game and just play the kind of the free content, and then don't ever get around to spending $10, which is quite a lot for a mobile game. I mean, it's Mario, so that will overcome some of the inertia, I guess, but it's still $10 in a mobile game. But if we assume, say, 10 million people actually buy the game, so that will give kind of gross revenue of $100 million, sorry. And let's be even more generous, and let's actually say Nintendo actually makes $100 million off Super Mario Run, which is quite a big assumption. Now, if we look at actually Nintendo's financial figures for the year 2016, it had a turnover of $4.5 billion. So going on our very rough kind of numbers to make it easy, if we assume they get $100 million in a revenue, how is that going to add to $4.5 billion of revenue? Well, obviously it takes it up to $4.6 billion of revenue. So that's obviously nice to have growth. And interesting, over the last 3 or 4 years, Nintendo has seen its overall sales figures, its revenue drop quite considerably. Where it might become more interesting for Nintendo is profit. So Nintendo's profit in last year was $145 million. So profit margin not great, but actually Nintendo has made a loss in other years, so it's actually not bad for Nintendo. So if we again make a massive positive assumption for Nintendo, and let's say of that $100 million it makes from Super Mario Run, all of that is profit. Well, that would obviously almost, not quite double, but have a significant impact on Nintendo's profit compared to if we can take 2016 figures. Obviously it's not the case, because we know Apple is going to take a cut, and obviously to make the game Super Mario Run there will be some cost involved, and probably won't spend any money on marketing, but there could be other costs involved. But so the whole thing won't be profit in the sense that we're assuming it, but let's assume that's the case. Now, so that might seem good for Nintendo, so its sales will go up a little bit and its profit might go up a lot. But the problem is that's from 2016 was a particularly weak year for Nintendo. So if we look back at kind of previous years, the previous year, 2015, Nintendo had a profit of, let's have a quick look, of where are we? $450 million of profit. Okay, so suddenly $100 million of profit added on that doesn't, okay, still nice, still goes up to $550 million, but on a percentage term, doesn't really move the needle very much. So suddenly we're getting into just over 20%. which again is if a company increases its profits by 20%, that's you know, good. But we have to say 2016 was a very low base, so it's just basically kind of throwing these figures around. We can kind of see that the problem with Super Mario Run is, while it might be a brilliant game, and no doubt will be a good game and highly enjoyed, just the upside is limited, because it's very hard to see Nintendo in the whole year really generating more than $100 million. Where it will get interesting is if Nintendo stop playing around with pricing. So obviously it's $10 now. Would there be some sort of kind of it's Mario Day, so it's down to $5 or something like that? Because basically what it needs to do is it needs to saturate the market for people who will pay $10 for a Super Mario game. At the moment, no one knows what that is on mobile, so that's the big unknown. But it needs to saturate that, and then it needs to go, well, there's people who wouldn't spend $10 but might spend $5, so how can we reach them? Obviously at that stage you kind of get into the issue of, are you annoying people who bought it for $10? But if that pricing change doesn't happen for 6 months, and let's say Nintendo could, you know, conceivably make another kind of $50 million off that. So that's really the question for Nintendo's marketing kind of bods to work out what their pricing strategy will be. Another thing I would say is the $100 million figure is, my gut feeling is that's an overestimate. It's hard to, you know, judge, and it really depends on, you know, the brand value of Mario as a you know, certainly an iconic game character, but not so much over the last certainly decade compared to the decade before that. And against a younger generation, do people know who Mario is, and do people care? Whereas obviously people of an older generation will have grown up with Mario, and $10 for them to drop on an iPhone game over Christmas is probably something they will do. So anyway, that's all to play for. And I guess the other thing we have to say is we haven't really seen the game. There's been some odd video footage and such like, but nothing really substantive about whether the game will be any good or not. So anyway, so that's the mobile gaming sizzle for today. Thanks for watching. Come back tomorrow and find out what the sizzle is then. See you then.